If you're a property investor and you've purchased a residential investment in the last 4 years or so and it was in bad condition, then this video may be useful to you. I'm Nick Garner and I'm founder of Stamp Duty Advice Bureau, and we specialize in reclaims based on property condition. I'm going to talk through why our claims are compliant with HMRC guidance and give you some pointers on condition issues that merit a reclaim. I'm author of Stamp Duty Land Tax Guide for Residential Property Investors 2024, and this is a deep dive into how stamp duty land tax works, the exemptions, reliefs, reclassifications, various strategies that you can employ as a property investor to maximize your stamp duty efficiency, all in a very HMRC compliant way, which is very important. Now, if you have purchased a property in the last 4 years, it was in poor condition, and you paid the higher rate stamp duty, whether that's 3% or 5% if you're a non-UK resident for tax purposes, and it was in England or Northern Ireland, then it's very possible you have overpaid stamp duty. And the reason this happens is simply because conveyancing lawyers don't really understand the legislation around stamp duty, and thus they take a very conservative approach on these things. To explain the economics behind reclaims, essentially you've got residential rates and then non-residential rates. So if a property is assessed as non-residential for stamp duty purposes, then if you're a property investor, you're subject to lower rates of stamp duty. And therefore, if your property qualifies, you've overpaid on stamp duty and you have the legal right to reclaim that. HMRC guidance states that if a property has certain condition issues or falls within certain circumstances, it should not be considered a dwelling. And if it's not a dwelling, then it can't be considered as residential for stamp duty purposes, and therefore it's assessed as non-residential, which, as you saw earlier, is subject to lower rates of stamp duty under certain circumstances. If a residential property is not habitable, then it should be assessed as non-residential for stamp duty purposes. And HMRC guidance goes into various circumstances where a residential property should not be considered as a dwelling. And if not a dwelling, you can't reside in it. If you can't reside in it, then it's non-residential, just like an office or some agricultural land or a garage. In their guidance, they state that where there are hazards present that would cause a local authority to issue a prohibition notice restricting use of the premises, then the property would not be considered as a dwelling under HMRC guidance. A prohibition notice is something that a local authority can impose on a residential property owner, or in fact a non-residential property owner. The important point about HMRC guidance is that where there are hazards present, that would cause a local authority to issue a prohibition notice. That they're saying that there doesn't have to have been a prohibition notice in place. It's just that the condition issues must be serious enough in order for one to be warranted at time of purchase. Category 1 condition issues are prolific within UK housing stock. So something like 12% of all rental properties in the country have Category 1 issues. And these are things like toxic mold, damp, and so on. But when you look at new purchases by investors, there is a business model which generally makes sense, and that is to buy properties which owner-occupiers are reluctant to purchase because of condition issues, and investors who know their way around construction and renovation will do the properties up, revalue them, and then rent them out or resell them. And therefore, for property investors, it's probably more like 25% of all purchase properties have serious condition issues. And just putting that in broad terms, that's something like 30,000 properties every year where investors have overpaid on stamp duty due to property condition. And for those of you who are familiar with property issues, condition issues, this will all be very straightforward for you. Damp, mold, bad electrics, kitchens that aren't fit for purpose, bathrooms that aren't fit for purpose, risk of falling masonry and roof tiles coming down, subsidence issues, and general property neglect. And all these kind of issues are effectively category 1. Now, this isn't even category 2. These aren't even category 2 issues, but they're widespread in property. And I'm sure if you purchased a property, you paid the higher rate stamp duty, and it needed renovation, some of these kinds of condition issues would have been present in your property at time of purchase. If you purchased a property with these category 1 issues and you had to renovate because otherwise you weren't able to rent out the property, or perhaps you needed to get the property up to reasonable standard to resell, and your conveyancing solicitor said, well, it's a house, you've got to pay residential rates, well, then you can see here that you've overpaid stamp duty. If you're not sure whether your property would qualify for a reclaim, then it's helpful to go through some of our case studies, and we have over 100 of them on our website, and you can see photo galleries just showing condition issues present in these properties. Like a lot of law firms, our tax consultancy works on a no-win, no-fee basis. So what that means is if we take on your case, we have confidence in it, and we believe that HMRC will reclaim, and therefore any money that we do receive is effectively a success fee. HMRC will pay you directly, and then you pay us. And if HMRC claw back your reclaim, and bearing in mind that's very unlikely because we work within HMRC guidance, then we pay our success fees back to you plus interest. Our standard success fee is 30% plus VAT. However, if you're introduced to us through an introducing partner, then that drops to 25% plus VAT. And if you have more than one reclaim, then fees are negotiable. I hope this presentation has been useful to you. It should demystify stamp duty reclaims, and I hope you can now see that if you do reclaim due to property condition, you have the legal right to, and as long as you have category 1 or category 2 hazards in your property at time of purchase, then you are working within HMRC guidance, which is a really important point. Anyway, thank you very much.